To order the August 27th, 2019 City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board meeting. Can we please begin with a roll call?
Amanda Skyer.
Here.
Theodore Aspergren.
Here.
Kristen Kellogg.
Here.
Dan Pickney.
Here.
Takara Chambers.
Here.
Gabriel Jaroslawski.
Here.
Ken Breslauer.
Here.
Reginald Stambaugh.
Here.
Nick Casatley.
Here.
Moving on to approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have any changes to the agenda as presented? None from staff?
I have a change.
Yes.
I was wondering if we could put the Cordova case on the consent agenda, since the email that we got today met the only condition that we had. If anyone had no objections.
Could you explain what that means for the people?
We actually have a member in the audience who is here for that particular case, so thank you for trying to streamline our meeting, but perhaps we can keep it as a new case, because we do have a member of the public.
Okay. Any further changes requested? Okay. Can we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the agenda for the City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board, Tuesday, August 27th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Moving on to approval of the minutes from the July 23rd meeting. Do you have any changes to the meeting minutes as presented?
I have a change.
Yes.
I saw there was a typo in my name. I'd like that corrected.
Oh, okay. Okay, with that one change, can we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes from the July 23rd, 2019 meeting with the noted change of spelling of Takara Chambers.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the report of the Historic Preservation Planner.
Good evening, Frederique Mettner, City Historic Preservation Planner. A couple updates since your last meeting. The City Commission on August 12th did uphold your decision in the South Flagler case in regards to the whitewashing. So they again upheld your decision. And then on September 14th, I wanted to announce that the Storm of 28, which is our cemetery, the mass grave in the north end of the city, is having their annual celebration, if anyone's interested. You also, at your seats, have the planning officials training, and the city is willing to cover the cost of that if you're interested, and we'd be happy to get you registered. So if you want to just send me an email, we'll coordinate that. And those flyers are at your seats. And then since last meeting, staff has had 107 level 1 applications, 2 level 2 applications, and 34 zoning reviews. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
We now move on to remarks by the chairperson. The matters before us are quasi-judicial in nature, which means we make our decisions based on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. We ask you to please keep this in mind when making your comments. For each case on tonight's agenda, the applicant will first make a presentation, followed by a staff presentation, and then we will open it up to public comment. And then the applicant, if there is public comment, will have an opportunity for a rebuttal. After that, we will enter into executive session where we will discuss amongst the board, and then there will be a motion for the case. So to lead into this, we need to let you know if we've had any conversations outside of this meeting. So we will have a declaration of ex parte communications.
Nick Casatley, no ex parte communications.
Takara Chambers, no ex parte communication.
Gabe Jaroslawski, no ex parte communication.
Theodora Aspergren, no ex parte communication.
Amanda Skyer, I did speak to Ms. Mittner about the cases on tonight's agenda, but I can make my decision based on the evidence presented.
Kristen Kellogg, no ex parte communication.
Dan Pickney, no ex parte communications.
Ken Breslauer, no ex parte communication.
Reginald Stambaugh, no ex parte communication.
Thank you. We'll now open up the meeting to public comment. If you are here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, so if there's something you want to discuss with the board that's not on the agenda, now is the time to do so. Okay? If you plan to speak tonight, if you could please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. So the first case we have is a continued case from the last meeting, and that's case number 19-38, 2111 South Flagler Drive.
Yes, and just a quick update, since it had such a positive outcome. This was the request to remove a previous board condition of restoring the original front door at the property at 2111 South Flagler Drive in the El Cid Historic District. These are images we showed you last time of the structure prior to the rehabilitation work being done, currently under construction, focusing in a little bit more on the original door that had been during construction removed to, again, the initial intention was to restore it. The applicant indicated they could not and one to replicate it. However, after direction from the board last time, thank you for the support and guidance to the applicants. They have been able to restore the door. It's refinished and it will be reinstalled. So that particular case is withdrawn, but I thought it'd be great to show you the photographs.
And then there was another condition regarding the window above the door and also some other items, but that particularly was part of the approval. What is the latest on those other items?
So
that
I've
we
reached
brought
out
up?
to the contractor, reminding him those are other things, but they haven't specifically asked to remove those as conditions. So I will reach out again. But at this time, again, the final product should be what was approved by the board.
Okay, and it is a tax abatement project?
It was an ad valorem, the original one, not this request to modify the original. Yes, an ad valorem tax exemption, so you should be seeing the completed work when they submit for that.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's good news. We like to see when original features are preserved. So moving on to new business, case number 19-41, 328 Cordova Road.
I'll let the applicant present first.
Good afternoon, Rafael Rodriguez, Studio SR. The owner of the home is also here, Mr. Scott Anderson. If you have any questions for him also, he'll be available. Let me see, I'm sorry, I'm trying to... I was just told I would have to present first, so I had to get up with the presentation quickly. As you can see, this is the survey of the property. The existing property is a good-sized property. It's 18,000 square feet total. It's located on Cordova, and it's off the corner of Dixie Highway. The main residence is 4,668 square feet, and the accessory structure is 497 square feet. It was built in 1925, and we are going to be doing some interior renovations to the main house, to the accessory structure, as well as add a garage on the north side of the property. These are the drawings that were presented to the historic board. The drawing on the left is the existing conditions, and the one on the right is the proposed that was submitted to historic. You see the garage with a storage is on the north side, and it does show the original front garages that would face Cordova. There is a renovation to the master bedroom and master bathroom areas. And then the guest house on the first floor will also be renovated. There is an existing wood stair to the second floor that is not in good condition, and that'll be replaced with a concrete stair. This is the existing second floor plan on the left, and then the proposed second floor plan on the right. The hatched area on the lower portion of the drawing shows the addition on the second floor, which will include a bathroom, a little laundry area, and then a bedroom. And then the second floor of the guest house. This is the original site plan that was submitted to the Historic Board. As you can see, there is an existing curb cut on Cordova. The original intention was to have front-loaded garages. You would enter directly and then enter the garage right from, right into the building. Because of the conversations with Frederique, she suggested that the approval be pending on side-loaded garages. So I spoke to the client and spoke to Frederique, and we reached an agreement that we changed the garage to a side-loaded garage. And this is the site plan that shows the entrance still while using the existing curb cut. You sort of have to go south and then go enter the garage on the east side. We are also providing an additional curb cut onto Cordova to exit directly out to Cordova. This is the existing proposed floor plan as presented to the Historic Board. The hatch area does show the garage with the front-loaded garages and the driveway. The drawing on the right shows the side-loaded garages and then the new proposed driveway. Drawing on the top is the proposed south elevation with the front-loaded garages, and then this is what the front elevation would look like with the revised south elevation with 3 windows in lieu of the garage doors. This is the east elevation, not showing on the top drawing. The original submitted would had 2 windows on the east side where the garage was, and now the drawing on the bottom has a revised east elevation with the 2 garage doors, which are side-loaded. Additional work also includes the addition on second floor on the south elevation. The drawing on top shows the existing, and then we are actually building above the existing parapet and enclosing that area for the bedroom and the bathroom and the little laundry area. This is the west elevation, the existing west elevation, showing mostly the master bedroom windows that we're adding on the existing south elevation on the bottom. I'm sorry, that should say proposed. And then the renovations to the guest house. It's the current front elevation photograph. So you can see there is an existing driveway from Cordova, which was, I guess originally this area where the fountain was an original carport, which is enclosed at some time. We're actually building in front of this area. This is the garage will occur. This is the existing sidewall that's in front of the property. This is the existing curb cut that we are planning to maintain, and starting from the east side, there will be another curb cut on the between the third and fourth exterior pier. That concludes the presentation. Have any questions?
Questions of the applicant?
When you were showing the approach to the garage, kind of have to make 2 double turn. Is there sufficient turning radius there for a larger vehicle?
Yes, we made the driveway 16 feet wide.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was a concern of the owner at one time. Yes, make sure he has a big SUV he wants to get around.
Yeah.
So we did look at that.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Can you put on the screen, please, the south elevations that we don't have the latest here in the package? And do you have the existing one?
I don't have it on here. It's
Well,
part of the
you have a
package.
picture also that shows what I'm trying to show you,
Oh, okay.
which is a feature that I am not sure that is That feature on the left, is that historic in the house? Was added later, or is an original feature on the house? The one that fountain with the green feature on the wall.
Right. We were looked at drawings from 2005, and that does show that feature was added in 2005. As far as I know, it was not a historic part of the original house.
Are you talking about the fountain feature itself or the whole part of that structure?
This was open at one time, and it was enclosed to have on the side of the fountain, in the loggia, there's a fireplace there, which is not in use. It was a ventless fireplace. It was taken out. So this is on the opposite side, which just showed I think it's a copper fountain that was attached to the facade.
So Gabe, were you asking about the structure or the fountain?
Well, no, I was asking about the geometry itself, because the architect is replacing this feature. I mean, he's building in front of it, and he is proposing regular windows, right, with a flat header, when there was an arch here. So I was just wondering if we should ask, the architect to do something to mimic what was there before.
Well, the arch is just a stucco feature.
Well, it was an opening originally, probably that was enclosed at some
yes.
point, correct?
Yes.
Did you consider a detached garage?
Yes. The history of this project, back in 2005, someone did propose a detached garage, but we got away from that because it takes a lot of space from the side yard, unfortunately, and it does not allow you to enter the garage and then the house. You have to go through this sort of a connection between the two, and that was not desirable for the client.
I'm actually really surprised that this came from your office.
Okay.
To add an attached two-car garage to a contributing house when there's plenty of room on the lot. I mean, usually I very much like the work that comes out, and I think it's very much in line with the Secretary of Interior's standards. And I actually disagree with the staff report. I think there will be loss of historic material if an attached two-car garage is added in this location. And the way that it changes the massing of the house, it's very concerning to me. So, I mean, we had a property on Pershing that was just recently completed that they did a detached two-car garage, and this lot is larger. And it turned out beautifully, and you can tell that it was a later addition and it's appropriate. On a 1920s home, you would never see an attached garage, let alone a two-car garage.
Well, I think one of the issues too is that this wing was a later addition. You can see in the demolition of the history of the house, we started to do some exploratory demolition, that area was an addition added at some time. The master bedroom area was another addition that was added at some time. So adding on to a non-historic portion of building, I don't know, we felt that in this case, to have the ease to enter the house and then walk directly, enter the garage and then enter the house, while allowing for a lot of extra room for his family and kids to run around, was an added.
So it won't be touching the original portion of the house? There won't be a loss of those dining room windows there?
Yes, there will be loss of two windows when you attach to it. One window, I'm sorry, when you attach to it.
So it will be touching the historic portion?
Yes, it is.
The garage
Yes.
won't, a storage area will.
Yes.
But I think there's also a building restriction of having another detached structure on the property. Because we already have one that's historic.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 square feet. My understanding is you couldn't put another detached structure and get it through the building department.
Well, it would have to be attached to the house somehow.
Ms. Mettner, can you please speak to that?
Yes, the owner is correct that you can only have detached structures that total 1,000 square feet. And I think there are existing detached structures fairly close to that. However, a solid roof, even if it's open air with some barrel tile, would constitute an attached garage. So there is a way to, if you're looking for the massing to be separated, but then still from a zoning code standpoint connected, that is feasible.
Can they have a variance from that requirement?
No,
If
they would need to
like
have
an
that solid roof.
enclosed, if they wanted an enclosed detached garage, could they get an exception somehow that?
And that would be a variance this board would hear. I think it's probably simpler, again, to do a small attachment with just a covered roof.
Okay. Okay.
Which is what the house on Flagler that came before us not too
Yes,
long
that was
ago.
also your project.
Yes.
I think one of the challenges here, we originally wanted to do a front facing, and I know that's not really an option at this point, but got lots of kids, despite my gray hair, they're fairly young. And, you know, we love the property because there's plenty of room to run and, you know, soccer, football, baseball, those fun things that you do when you're with the kids in the side yard, which even with the side facing is gonna be somewhat challenging, but potentially doable. So,
Okay. Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Frederic Mettner presenting the application that you just heard for 1941 ad valorem pre-construction for alterations and additions at 328 Cordova Road. It is on the south side of Cordova Road, just east of the commercial property on South Dixie Highway, and it is located in the El Cid Historic District as a contributing structure. Here's some images similar to what the applicant just showed you. And the survey, so you can see that is quite a wide lot of 148 feet by 125 feet deep with a primary structure here and that accessory, two-story accessory structure we're talking about that already exists in the back there. The request, as you've heard and seen in your packet, is a rear addition to the primary structure, interior modifications as well as modifications to the accessory structure, and a two-car garage addition of approximately 688 square feet. First, I want to present the rear addition and the interior and accessory structure modifications. Those are theoretically level 2 application, a level 2 application that could have been approved at staff, but since it was coming in front of the board, we wanted to make you aware and wrap it into the ad valorem pre-construction application. So on the ground floor, it's really just some changes here, interior floor plan here, a new stairwell at the accessory, and then on the second floor, a bedroom addition on the primary structure, also at the rear, and then interior modifications and stair modifications to the accessory structure. The way that would impact the elevations is seen here in these windows on the east of the accessory structure as well as the ground floor. I'm gonna just go back briefly to the images. As you can see here, some of these modifications to the accessory structure are not original. They even have single pane paired doors and some of these kind of track wood sliding doors. So the alterations that are being proposed for the elevations on the accessory structure we feel are appropriate because again, there have been so many modifications over time. As well as this small sliver of an addition at the back to the primary structure. How that would modify the rear elevation would be incorporating the second floor here and converting this pair of double windows to a triple. And then again, improvements to the staircase into the accessory. So again, all level 2 applications, and we're recommending full approval of those modifications. However, when we met with the applicant, even prior to submittal, we stressed that we were concerned about a front-loading garage. So this was indeed a arch porte-cochere that went in front of the Historic Preservation Board in 2005. I provided you the minutes and the design that was approved at that meeting in lieu of a garage that they were proposing at that time. That board also directed the owner, the previous owner, that they would not support a front-loading garage. They would support a two-car or a side-loading garage. So this was the compromise at the time, is to enclose the porte-cochere, leave the arch in place to pay homage to the original opening. So this is the location that we're talking about, and then again, it would be on this side. The current porte-cochere that's been enclosed is in this location, so that remains the same, and then the garage that's proposed is in front of it. So it is bringing the front elevation closer to the street. There's a storage area proposed here, and again, originally a two-car garage. Even though we had advised the applicant through the process, it was after the staff report was published that they submitted revised plans for side loading, and we said we'd present it to you this evening. So this is addressing the side loading garage in the same footprint as what was previously proposed as a front loading. So this projects about 14 feet further east than the current porte-cochere and approximately 22 feet further to the north than what's currently there. So this portion, again, is the new portion for the garage, and then this is also infilled and bringing it closer. And now you can see it's the side-loading two-car garage here that is attached. We reviewed it based on the compatibility standards and Secretary of Interior Standards 9 and 10. We did believe, because there were alterations to the porte-cochere and based on previous direction from the board in 2005, a side-loading garage would be more appropriate. So that's what we've recommended, and again, you've seen that revised design this evening. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions of staff?
With regards to the fact that it is an attached garage, which is not ever seen on a 1920s historic building.
Correct.
To detach this garage but leave it in the same location, can the storage space be eliminated and make that like a breezeway?
I certainly think there's a way to solve the design issue of accomplishing storage space. Perhaps the storage space could be located with the garage that's, again, attached with a breezeway. Because it is such a large lot, I think there is a way to accomplish that, to get storage space and garage space. It would, it would just be a matter of designing it over here. I mean, I think you heard the owner say they're concerned about losing more green space, but I think it's certainly doable where you would turn in this way. And so you'd actually have less driveway instead of looping around to come in. Entering westbound, you would continue to enter eastbound, and then there would be a covered breezeway.
Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. And also the porte-cochere that was closed in with the green on in the front there, is there any way of mimicking that and eliminating the windows so that you kind of are still looking at the same thing when you look at the house?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Could you
So
repeat it?
where the fountain is and
Yes.
the green and the archway, can that look be moved forward so that it would be on the front of the house instead of the windows of the garage? Have it be that so that it almost looks right there.
So, well, I mean,
Does that make any sense too?
it does, but I think that may not be necessary based on if you want a complete relocation of the garage. But if not, if the garage stays in its place, I think the applicant could, I mean, I'll defer to them, but I think that arch could be mimicked, yes. So I think there are two different approaches. If you would like to proceed with this proposal that's presented here, the arch could be located here, or again, a complete redesign.
Just
Because from a floor plan standpoint, if this shifts over, then you still have your arch.
Well, I wasn't really proposing to shift the whole garage over. I was just proposing to detach it physically. Well, I mean, not detach it, but get rid of the storage space so that that is an open space.
Okay.
You have a little arch there with a gate, and you could walk through there. It would, and then you could have some kind of,
Well, then it would be attached and they would meet, would meet the code if you're just getting rid of this component. And then perhaps they could expand further east to add a storage area, but I'd really have to let that be up to the architect and owner of how they want to resolve the issue, if that's your concern.
Do you have a side-by-side front elevation of existing and proposed?
I have,
That is the proposed, but
right, yes. I don't know, I may go back into the applicant's folder. He may have one. Elevations, so this was what was proposed initially to the board with the front-loading garage, and this was the revised to address the condition staff was recommending with the windows. But you're looking for an existing elevation. I am not sure if that's in here.
what I was trying to explain is, and I understand, what other members here said. We are changing here the massing of the house, because originally it's a two-story house, and by adding the attached garage, all that portion becomes a one-story. So the look of the house changes dramatically.
Well, there are one-story elements existing, but it is bringing it further north. I'm trying to get a little bit. So here you kind of have.
By the way, I think that we put as a rule that in order for us to review it, we would like to have an existing and a proposed elevation on the same page, right?
I will.
There should be one in the historic and the original package.
It should be in your packets, page 201, or sheet 201, and then I can also pass this around, which is the large set.
Yeah, we don't have 201. We don't have 201 in our package.
There may have been a printing error, because I do see that Aaron's packet has it and mine doesn't have it, so I'm not.
And mine doesn't have it.
Okay, sorry, I would.
Oh, hold on, mine has it in another, it's in another part of the package.
Yep, that first part is all about the garage. That second component was all what would have been a level 2 application, but again, we wanted you to be aware of it.
And the application doesn't say, but the accessory structure is also contributing structure, right?
It is, yes.
Do you have any idea when that later addition might have been made, if it's a porte cochere?
I was not aware that that was an addition.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, perhaps the second floor was, we'd have to do some more research. It certainly has gained significance in its own right.
Okay.
And that was one of my questions. I was just waiting for our last question to be over, because I was looking at the detailing of it, which matches exactly the original, or, I mean, I think it's all of that's original, and I was looking back through the 2005 report, and there's things that are listed as existing on there, or changes to be made to the existing portico share. So it seems like they're just modifications that were done and an extension possibly of the portico share, but to me, my interpretation of what I'm looking at, the evidence before us, is that that elevation, with the exception of the infill, some minor detailing, like possibly the grill openings, just based on this noting, and where the fountain is, it looks like that is what was altered, and not that that whole thing, I mean, just looking at it, that does not look like it's from 2005, that whole structure. To me, it looks original.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't 2005. I think the applicant was referring to earlier than that, but not for the original.
Can you provide any examples of contributing properties that this board approved an attached garage addition to?
Not one that didn't already have one.
And how many years have you been with the city of West Palm Beach overseeing this board?
15 years.
Okay, thank you.
I think it also makes a difference, not just that it's attached, but that it's attached in the front, because it's, I mean, just to reiterate what everyone else is saying, it's changing some of your character defining features that we're talking about. It's changing the massing from the street. If it was the same bulk but in the rear and it's not changing it from the street, I would feel differently about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the picture. It has a triptycho of 3 windows on the corner, perfectly symmetrical, and we are destroying that just by adding a garage. I think that is an important change on the architecture of the house.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most character defining features of this house, one of the most significant.
Do we have any further questions of staff?
I have a question. So I just want to understand, if it wasn't for the proposed front-facing garage, would this have been reviewed at the staff level?
I'll have to do the math on the square footage. Once you hit a certain amount, 10%, then it has to come to the board regardless. So, and I imagine this would have been that met that threshold.
Thank you.
But initially, it went to the board because of the front-facing. And so since this was resolved over the weekend, I didn't do the math if it would be coming back before you anyway, because the board already published it, the board already had the packet, so.
Any further questions of staff?
The proposed garage, the roof seems much flatter than the enclosed porte cochere roof.
I will take a quick look at a roof plan.
The barrel tile
yes.
section seems to
So-
be deeper.
That is on page A1.04, and it is a flat roof with almost like a mansard roof around it.
So that,
And I guess that, I mean, you mentioned the accessory structure, but you don't have any concerns about the addition
No,
of
not at all.
windows?
Nope.
Even in the main house, there are 3 windows on the side elevation that are being added?
Correct. I think those are all the side and the rear, and I think those are things we typically support.
Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that are here to speak on this item? Yes, sir. If you'd like to come up. And we will need you to fill out a card before you leave. Okay. If you could state your name for the
Hi,
record.
good evening. My name's Douglas Taylor, and I live at 317 Cordova, which is right across the street from the house in question. And I'd like to say that I went through this process myself in 2015, so I'm vaguely familiar with it. And I did a lot of research at the time, and I would agree with you that it's totally inappropriate to have an attached garage in a house of this nature. This is one of the few houses in the neighborhood that has not been, dramatically altered and changed in character. My cousins owned this house for years, and the garage for this house was in the back of the house, not in the front. And so when you go by, to see a garage in the front of the house of this nature totally destroys the architectural character. And this is one of the nicest and oldest houses in the neighborhood right there on a big lot, and it would dramatically change it. So as somebody who lives on the street, I would say I'm totally against it. It's not only that the garage is in the front, but it's attached, totally inappropriate to have an attached garage in this neighborhood. The other thing I would say, I spoke to Steve Simpson, who's president of the Neighborhood Association for El Cid, and the respondent so far from the other people is negative. They don't want to see a garage in the front yard. So that's my comment, and I'll
Okay.
be happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Did you say that there was a garage on the property?
Yeah, the garage was in the back. The structure's still there. When the pool house was put in years ago, it was converted to a pool house, if you want to call it that. But that's where the garage was before, and it's still standing there. The structure's still there, and it could be converted back to a garage.
Okay. Thank you. And please, if you could fill out a card. And thank you for taking the time to come this evening. Do we have any other members of the public here to speak on this item? Okay. Would you like to respond? You have an opportunity to do that.
Just want to call up that photograph. No, the photograph. from the
While he's doing
presentation.
that, I have spoken to Steve Simpson, who does support this. I spoke to him this weekend, I spoke to him
That one,
weeks
right?
leading up to this. In fact, he was the broker who sold me this house. He handed me a set of plans that we were talking about in 2005 that showed the garage approved. That was an inducement for me I purchased this house in June. I would not have purchased this house if I could not put the garage on the property. That was a material inducement for my purchase. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm sure, feel free to talk to Steve. I mean, he would corroborate exactly what I'm saying. I spoke to him this weekend.
Did you speak to Ms. Mittner before you purchased the property to clarify that addition had been approved?
I didn't, but I'm guessing that would have been a difficult task. I think it took you some time to go find all that information when she was presented with the plans, no?
2 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 weeks, yeah.
And Ms. Mittner, you said it was not approved, correct?
Correct, yes, because it was a file that we don't have on site, but you have it in your packets. It was the 2005 case that was heard, and it was a request for a garage, and then again, the resolution was brought to approval at the hearing for this porte-cochere enclosure. Again, it's in your minutes, the vote is in your packet.
Thank you.
Right. Also, I've had the luxury of actually seeing some of the demolition some of the process that was done here, and the framing of the main house does not at all relate to the framing of this porte-cochere. This whole wing is about 1.5 feet lower than the main house. All this embellishment around the windows was not original to the house. I'm pretty sure that was added on. It's just stucco detailing and scored stucco. So I question a lot of this detail on here, whether that was original or not. Also, this lower roof here, the garage addition would have just taken, started from this rear and tied into this one-story addition. Set back 10 feet from the main entrance, so that did meet the historic requirements for garages in the code. Front-loaded garages are approved as long as they have 10 feet from the main facade. So that's sort of the criteria we're using.
Can you cite any examples of contributing structures that have been approved for an attached garage addition?
I haven't worked on any, no. So I don't know the record of that, but I know I haven't personally done one. So.
Okay.
So the other thing I would say, the need for the storage area is I do have an elderly mother who will probably be moving in with us. She's right now living in Palm Beach Gardens. So that was to store wheelchairs and other assisting devices that she has that we just don't want to leave around the house. That was sort of the primary reason. Now, if the 3 windows there that the arrows right down, is a problem, we're going to lose one of those. I can potentially move that storage area in to keep all 3 windows if that gets it approved. I prefer to leave it the way we drew it, because that provides the ample space we need. But if that's a requirement, then I guess I can do that, or I'd agree to that.
I think really our concern is, at least my concern, I can't speak for everyone here, but that it's an attached garage, and that historically in the 1920s that just wasn't done. That's something that came about much later. So it creates a false sense of history, and also there would be loss of historic materials, so that even if that garage was removed at some point in the future, you could never get that back because it would be gone. So that's really where we're coming from, that we're guided by the Secretary of Interior's standards. And I think it's unfortunate. I know Steve, and I'd be happy to speak to him. I also live in El Cid, that he did not tell you to check with the preservation planner. It's always a good idea before you buy a property to reach out and make sure that what you have in mind to make a property work for you is actually something that is compatible with the historic district. So it's unfortunate that communication was not had before this meeting. So I'd be happy to speak to him about that, because he should know.
We did speak to Steve. He gave us the drawings from 2005.
But he said that they were approved.
Well, he said they were approved, and then when I spoke to Frederica about it, she says they were approved as they were with side-loaded garages. So that's sort of where we are now, with the side-loaded garages attached to the house.
But Ms. Mintner, you said that just the enclosure of the I'm sorry, I just want to...
I've provided the exact minutes to Mr. Rodriguez as you have, and it's a whole dialogue about it on pages 5, 6, and 7 of the minutes. And the applicant, Roger Jansen, answered questions from the board. He stated it would be impossible to side-load the garage. This is again after dialogue and direction. Mr. Publionis motioned to approve a Historic Preservation Board case number 05-12 with the following conditions. The alternate portico share design as presented at the February 22nd, 2005 HPB meeting is to be used. That is what you see here. That's what was executed. 2, the proposed casement windows are to have dimensional exterior muntins. 3, a bracketed trellis is to be added above the garage doors. Seconded by Mr. Honchar, approved 7-0. Again, I don't know what garage doors they're referring to, but it doesn't discuss, a garage, except for the trellis.
May I read something at the bottom of page 6?
Yep.
Thank you. It says, the proposed garage addition should be redesigned as side-loading garage. The redesign can be administratively approved by staff prior to submittal for a building permit. So there was a side-facing garage that was in theory approved if he just proceeded with it. He did not believe a side-facing garage was possible. I do. Hence, I'm proceeding.
But do we have plans for that approval?
No,
Barb?
there was no other cases, and so when it says approved by staff, that would have been a level 2, would have had a case number, and I could not find anything to that. And again, because based on what was actually constructed in the field, I believe the previous owner didn't proceed. Perhaps, again, that was direction that was given, as you can do a side-loading garage, and we'll do it administratively. The applicant, the architect at the time said that's impossible, and the owner at the time elected not to proceed with that.
Because here in item number 1, it has a brief description of the garage, the location, but it's not really clear. It seems like it says approximately 108 square feet of the easternmost portion of the garage addition is inset and offset approximately 4 feet on the main and rear facades.
Right,
But
that
that-
was what was requested at the time. But again, that's not what was approved, nor were there other plans, and obviously it wasn't constructed either.
Right. I think it says on here that the staff would recommend approval with conditions, and then it says that the proposed garage would have to be redesigned as a side-loading garage. And there's no indication here of a redesign having happened. So unless there's some other file, which Frederick has indicated she looked for it, that there's no further design that was submitted after that point.
So what bearing should this information have on our decision this evening?
I mean, you look at all of the competent, substantial evidence before the board. This is just one little piece of the puzzle indicating that at some point, someone wanted to construct a garage. It looks like staff said there could be a proposed addition could be redesigned, and then that never happened. And so here we are now with this proposed redesign, which is, 14 years later, and so it's come before the board at this time to evaluate all of the evidence.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. Reginald Stambaugh, I know Cordova Road. I had a house on Cordova Road, and all of the garages that I know of are behind the houses. The garage that we had at 281 was behind the house. And I understand the concerns that the applicant has regarding what was represented prior to closing. And it's a great concern for me because I'm a real estate lawyer. And during the due diligence period, the professionals that are involved need to be apprising the owner, or the prospective buyer rather, as to what restrictions there might be in the construction or development of a particular property. And anyone who knows Cordova Road in the historic district knows that one of the defining factors of that district revolves around the Mediterranean Revival style, where the garage is behind the house. When I first came back to town after law school in 1993 and went through street by street, one of the most important factors that distinguishes that particular architectural style is that the garages were in the back. And actually made a distinction about the new developments that we have all over South Florida, where you have front-facing garages. So I'm deeply concerned that your professionals that surrounded you during the application process, prior to closing, did not forewarn the possibility of a rejection. To me, especially with the prior application, which suggests that it should be side-facing. But that is not what's before us right now. What's before us is the application, and staff recommendation says the elevations presented for a two-car front-facing garage is inconsistent with the historic Mediterranean architectural style and the characteristics in this neighborhood. All others are detached or side-facing. So the frustrating part is that you spent a lot of money buying the house, paying professionals, and here you are with a good expectation for an approval, where I don't see how it can be reconciled under the particular set of facts. The only thing that I could see which trumps historic characteristics of a historic district is handicap accessibility, like an American Disabilities Act criteria or requirements. And if the applicant has made a suggestion that there's a disability and there needs to be an accommodation, it's been my history or my experience, rather, that can take serious consideration for making exceptions. But under the way that things are presented right now, and having an intimate knowledge with that street, I can't reconcile staff's recommendation with any kind of approval of a front-facing garage, two-car garage at that. And I feel for the applicant because this is like the ninth inning. This is final day, ready for approval, and these concerns should have been addressed so much earlier than now. And it's upsetting to me because I just don't think the due diligence prior to acquisition was made where you were relying upon dicta or comments or prior applications where there weren't any approvals. So if you want to take a hard look at an ADA type of, and I say type because it's not applicable here as I understand it, but type of requirements where you have someone who's elderly and needs special attention, that would be the only way that I could see it, quote unquote, trumping the requirements.
Well, I'd like to clarify, the front-loading garage is no longer what's in front of you. The applicant has redesigned for the
Okay.
side-loading garage, and
didn't
that's
hear
what they're
that.
presenting to address staff's recommendation and condition. So we completed the staff report, informed the applicant that we're going to recommend approval if it's redesigned for side loading,
Okay.
which is consistent with the 2005 board decision. So the applicant had quickly modified plans and is presenting to you this evening a side-loaded garage. So these are the revised elevations on the screen in front of you. They were also emailed to you to reflect, again, the front has the windows and then the side is where the garage is. So it's feasible to do a side-loading garage, and there's no ADA concerns at all about that. I think just other board members are expressing concerns about even having it attached, but definitely all that's on the table is side loading. No more
Okay.
front loading.
Well, the plans were showing that, but thanks for making the point. Yeah.
Ms. Mittner, what relationship is there between an attached garage and ADA access? Is that something that's necessary in order to provide ADA access to a historic structure?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, it's really a ramp entering if it's an elevated structure, but again, that was really not a concern that was presented to staff here. We would certainly be happy to work with an applicant to make any modifications necessary to accomplish that accessibility, but I think there's other ways to get there.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Mittner, in the revised east elevation with the side-loading garage,
Yes.
the pitch of the roof there and facing the front, facing Cordova, seems to match the pitch of the roof of the entrance. But in the...
No, I believe, and I can defer this to the architect, I believe what you're seeing in the distance is this hip roof back here, and then this is just that small sliver
I
of
see
a
that, okay.
mansard in front of it. So just the distance is kind of misleading. This roof is this roof.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, thank you. We'll now enter into executive session.
Madam Chairperson, could you just clarify for me a comment you made very early on in this discussion? As I understood it, the applicant would have been required to give up the storage space, and a breezeway would be created, and so in a sense, the garage would then become a detached garage. Did I misunderstand what you were saying?
Well, I'm sorry, I think I was the one who mentioned
You said that? Okay.
But physically, it really wouldn't be detached. There would just be sort of an arch, and you could sort of walk through that way, and then it would come across. If you look at the floor plan, you can see that it is still very much attached, but I think it breaks up the boldness of the new design. The massing. I think it would break up to have something like that.
It just seems that-
it would
yeah.
look as if that part of the construction were partially detached.
I think we're talking about two different things. So the first thing that was discussed early on is if it was detached, in order to meet code,
Right.
it would have to be attached to the main structure by a breezeway. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. So it could be detached, but there would have to be some kind of covered walkway attaching it to the main house. What Ms. Aspergren suggested as an alternative design was removing the storage space and leaving that open with an arch, but the garage would still be attached, but there would be that slight separation between the historic structure and the garage addition.
Okay, so,
So we're talking about two different
okay, but
things.
just going back to what you're proposing, it seems as though you're accomplishing detaching the garage, okay?
Who is?
Well, what
Who are
you're
you
saying.
pointing at?
What you're saying.
Okay.
Ms. Scott, that the garage would be detached, side loading, and there would be a breezeway. That would accomplish, it would seem what we need to do. In any case, we're asking the applicant to give up something, Maybe we're asking him to give up his storage space, maybe play areas for his children or grandchildren, or maybe something completely out of the box of rebuilding the garage in the back there and relocating a pool house or something like that. If that works, again, unfortunately, the applicant would be giving up something. But it seems to me that the simplest thing is that with a breezeway that is, while attached to the house, fulfills the requirement of being an attached garage.
Well, and just to clarify, I think Ms. Mittner said there wouldn't need to be an omission of the storage. It could still somehow be incorporated into
Okay,
a
fine.
detached garage, so there wouldn't be the loss of that necessary storage necessarily. And I personally think, referencing that property that we all approved on Pershing that has been completed, and if you haven't been by, I think it shows how a detached two-car garage can be added to a property. And although it's not in the back as historically would be seen, it gives some flexibility for a more modern day level of comfort that someone would have that in a location that is more convenient than perhaps in the back of the property.
Yeah, I just think that the simplest solution that meets the applicant's need and meets the board needs is the one we need to go with.
Okay, thank you. I personally, I don't know if anyone's going to jump in here, but I personally, I think I've made my points known about my concern about how this affects the loss of historic materials, the massing. I think it just greatly changes this building, and I think that it's inappropriate. So I would personally like to see, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would like to see the applicant come back with a redesign for a detached garage. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see this case continued with a redesign, but I don't know if that's how everybody else feels.
I agree. I'd like to see it deferred.
Yeah, I mean, I said it in my first comments, and yeah, I totally agree with that because the loss is too great.
It's an amazing house. It's an amazing house, and I think it's unfortunate that the applicant was told something that wasn't a guarantee and that we're in this situation where we're, disappointing someone.
I mean, if I
but-
can say something more, I
Yes.
mean, I don't know that the detached versus attached is the solution, but there should be a solution that respects more the architecture of the house.
Yes. Well, do we want to give clear direction? I would like to see it completely detached, but I don't know if anyone else wants to consider another design that is somehow attached, perhaps in a different location. Do
Well,
we want to give some direction on that?
The original garage was detached, it just happened to be behind the house. So that would be a consistent factor in planning and designing a new garage. But how it's going to play into the house, I would leave that to the architect to figure out.
Yeah. I mean,
I would agree with you that the garage should be detached if we're looking at the history of the use of the house. I mean, it's a typical situation where buyers go and they convert the garages to pool houses or guest cottages, and then they leave out the garage, and next thing you know, they want a garage next to the house. So, happens many times. But unfortunately, we're not able to solve it, I don't think, right now. But as long as the garage isn't front facing, I'm okay.
Okay.
And I think it's important to remember this is a very large lot, so there's plenty of room to create a sensitive solution that still provides the program and the square footage that the owner is looking for. And also, just as a matter of record, I've contacted Ms. Mittner countless times about different projects that I've seen. I've referred friends to her to contact, and she's always gotten back within 48 hours. So just if anyone is out there listening and looking at buying a historic house, it's really easy to get a hold of our city staff, and we're really grateful to Ms. Mittner and Aaron for that ability.
Thank you for making that point, because I also agree that has been, I live in the same historic district, and every dealing that I've had with the preservation planners for the city has been very prompt, and I can understand that if something is stored off-site, that I'm sure there are channels that you have to go through to even request something, so it's maybe something that's not even you're physically doing, so I could see how that might take 2 weeks, because this is a large municipality. So if there's no further discussion, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to defer case number 19-41 to the September Historic Preservation Board meeting to give the applicant an opportunity to redesign a more sensitive garage addition, explore the detached option, to create something that's more sensitive to the historic property.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to case number 19-42, 745 Newark Street.
This is Patricia Cohen, the property owner, and she's going to walk you through her request, and then I'll do a presentation as well. First, to enter or slide, it's all there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Detached garage, don't have a problem there. I purchased this Spanish Mission home and saw that there have been so many additions and modifications that the actual home doesn't really seem to exist. It is currently a 2-unit property, and I'd like to convert it to a single-family unit. Maintaining the Spanish Mission is something that I'm excited about, the parapet and what have you. The garage would be in the back. I am looking to add a one-car garage with access from the alley that I luckily have on this property. And I will be looking to add square footage to the back of the house. The back of the house is currently sinking. Since I bought it last June, I would say it's a few inches. I mean, I'm like, okay, let's hurry this up because I need to prop that baby up. So the whole entire back of the house has been multiple modifications. There's nothing unique or traditional. Even the finish of the back of the house is not the Spanish style, I forget what it's called, the stucco. So I don't think that there will be any detriment to the property by changing the back of the house. So the front would remain pretty much the same with the modification to the entryway. In conversation with Ms. Mittner, we saw that there was indentations that identified a prior portico or cover. So we're trying to rebuild that, and the only difference between what's existing there now and what I'd like to do is make it a side staircase as opposed to a south-facing staircase. In lieu of the south-facing staircase, I'd like to put a water feature there with Spanish tile and make it very pretty. I know you have a lot of the items. The lot is 100 by 50. It is a small lot. I do have the alleyway, which definitely adds to egress and ingress to the garage. And as long as we maintain, we've discussed this with Ms. Mittner, the sufficient 15-foot requirement, then we should be fine to proceed. In addition to the property changes, we looked at the windows. They will remain the same. There's 6 panes on the top and no panes on the bottom, so we'll definitely stay with that. What else can I tell you that'll be different? In this page, you'll see where the walls in the interior are going to be moved to make it more functional than currently, it was kind of like a two units, each one had 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and it was just with 2 kitchens. So we're trying to reconfigure that without making as many changes as possible. The first bedroom here will stay the same. Living room will stay the same, with the fireplace will stay the same. This area here was closed in. We believe this was a patio because the flooring is, what is that, 1950s flooring with the speckled terrazzo, which obviously is not original to the property, but we'll maintain that because it's already enclosed. So really the changes will be more in the back of the house again, this area here. Let me see if the next page will give you a better idea. Yes, here no, that's not the one either. I do apologize. First time, next time I'll be much better at this. As you can see, here's where the kitchen's going to be now, in the future, should you approve, and the master bedroom will be modified and extended back. Any questions? 1-car garage? Phew, detached. I was watching that going, oh no, not me, next.
So the goal is to substantially enlarge the pent roof over the entry door and create a larger kind of patio area, or how is that based on the original proportions?
Well,
design.
There's a big block right now, and I wish I don't know if Ms. Mittner has pictures, but there's a big block right now that's falling apart, crumbling, and it kind of doesn't, it doesn't form a real function, and then it's got little steps. So it just looks awkward, and so the idea would be to remove that entirely and rebuild it sturdy and more attractive and proportional to the front.
And the goal with the side-facing entry was to accommodate a fountain, or?
Accommodate a fountain, and also to give access to the driveway.
Okay.
Because in order to get to the driveway, to the front door, you really have to go to the street and come back around unless you're going to walk through the landscaping.
Okay. Has Ms. Mittner reviewed the conditions of her approval with you?
We've discussed them, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you're comfortable with all of them?
Completely, and I
Okay.
do enjoy her input. Enjoy may not be the best word, but I do welcome her input, and I do enjoy it too. Because I really would like to bring the house back. I mean, I'm Spanish, a Latin background, so I really embrace the idea of bringing back a Spanish mission-styled home.
That's great.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Do you have any further questions of the applicant? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
As Ms. Cohen already presented to you, this is an ad valorem pre-construction for alterations and new construction of a detached one-car garage at 745 Newark. Newark Street is in the Grandview Heights Historic District, and it does have currently a one-story mission-style home, but it did previously have a garage. And as you can see, it does abut an alley, which is right behind the Park Slope Art Deco-style townhomes. So it is a multifamily kind of neck of Grandview Heights there. And these are, I think, the images that she was referring to, where the front of the house, and then it does have this very large landing that is not really proportionate with the overhang in the door, and you can kind of see some of the demarcations here, as well as the door not being centered in the parapet. And certainly historically, homes were not always symmetrical. However, there's have been a lot of changes over the years, so something is a little off here, and I think she was trying to address that with the new overhang. This is the back of the property, again, the alley, and you can see it was kind of challenging to get over the fence, but you can see a completely different architectural style back here, and it does actually have one single slope surrounded by a parapet on three sides. So this was the site plan / survey that was submitted with, again, a detached one-car garage in the back, loaded off the alley. Again, images of the existing structure. This is that 1950s addition on the side that had been stuccoed. The green card on this property, oddly enough, the original address was 727 Newark Street. So sometimes it was a little hard to find out what was going on. But here in 62, you can see already this addition is here, the two bump outs, and at the time it did have a garage. The request is, again, a one-car garage off the alley, rear addition to the primary structure, interior and site modifications, and that front porch covering. So she's already shown you the proposed floor plan to make the single-family home flow better and the one-car garage. And then these were the elevations that were presented in the packet. A little bit of concern was this pent roof on the west elevation, so we did discuss that, and she was amenable to either adding windows or tiles or getting rid of it or some solution so it's not just a roof with nothing. I believe her intent was to put a grill here and kind of make it an outdoor kitchen, so it would serve a function. Additionally, with the slope roof coming off the main house and just kind of running all the way back. It is how it is designed now, but she was amenable to adding that parapet and just having that back porch be covered, as well as having that, finishing the parapet roof on the garage. That was one of the other conditions. Here, the schematic shows it better, where again, it was a three-sided parapet with a sloped roof, and this was a three-sided parapet with a sloped roof, but she is willing to finish it on both. And then I think actually this proposed porch with columns is better illustrated in this one line drawing that's in your packet than in some of the others, where I think the proportions really don't read very well here, while this is a closer look. So we would work together during the permitting process to get those details to be architecturally more appropriate to that front entry. And so again, these were the criteria that we reviewed the application with, the compatibility standards, Secretary Interior standards, and again, what led to the conditions we were recommending, and again, have discussed with the applicant is the parapet roof on all sides, front porch redesign, again, modifications on that west-facing pent roof on the garage, and then confirming that the garage meets the setback of the 15 feet to the center line. So that is staff's presentation. Happy to answer questions.
Questions of staff?
Ms. Mittner, what is the roofing material of the front porch roof?
It will be a tile roof. She had a sample in her submittal, but it was a clay tile.
Do you have any concerns about, I guess, changing the orientation of how you enter that little porch stoop area?
It is more traditional to enter straight from the front, but I understood the applicant's concerns because of the driveway and the proximity to that. Perhaps it could be symmetrical on both sides instead of just a one-sided step up. But I think because the landing is already there, I think it's something appropriate to entertain.
Yeah, what I was about to say, actually, it's very nice, the roof for the covered entries, because makes the house symmetrical now, even though it's not. So it's a trick. It's a small detail that concerns me, and maybe it's just me, that is the railing returning to the window. So when the railing returns to the window, it's going to hit the glass at any point, which doesn't make much sense, but it's the only detail that I can see.
Right, so that's something we can address. That's page on A302, which has also the tile finish, and as Mr. Jaroslavsky is pointing out, it balances out the symmetry by having just the one side loading.
Double loading it will solve that issue.
Mm-hmm. And actually, it's true, it's drawn on this, there is quite a bit of a grade to that street. You notice it even more in the alley than on the front, but it is drawn here, so I think that would also kind of change the approach.
It's true.
You can, again, it's kind of more visible here, but and hence these garages actually step up because of that. So I think that's also addressing that in the front.
Can you please go back to that picture of the front?
Yes.
So what's proposed for this new pent roof, is it still larger than that demarcation line that's there? Because it almost looks like it's larger because it extends over the steps.
Yes, it is larger than what is indicated up here, yes. Because it falls approximately here, that first pane, at least in this one elevation.
I think that is halfway through the parapet, the lower area of the parapet on both sides. It's halfway there.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they made it symmetrical.
There may be a case somewhere in the district, but typically in our historic districts, I don't really see like a front post that overlaps, like when you're looking from the front elevation of the house, that overlaps a window like that. So, the proportions would come in so that you're not reading a window beyond a post like that or intersecting it visually. I think you could still accomplish essentially the same thing by just pinching it in a little bit so that it's not making that overlap. You have a smaller overhang or a smaller roof.
Meaning, I like your suggestion.
I think that can be made if instead going to the center of the lower portion of the parapet goes to the edge of the higher portion. Yeah, right there on both sides. Now it's still symmetrical, it's clearing the door, It's not going to be clearing the stair. Probably one or two risers will stay outside of the roof, but everything is going to look better, I think.
Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Do you have any members of the public that want to speak on this item? No? Okay. So we'll go into executive session. So it seems like we have an applicant that's very amenable to the conditions of staff and looking forward to working with staff on revising some of the suggestions that staff made and I guess some modifications to the location of the posts for the entry there. Since she's open to that, do we want to add that as a condition, or I guess modify one of the conditions?
Yeah, I think condition number 2 already speaks to that, so just modifying it.
But
And
maybe we can add to that condition number 2.
And as far as the orientation of the stairs, it could be returned to being in line with the door rather than a side entry at some point in the future. Is there any concern about that, the relocation of the stairs?
I would prefer for it to be from the front, but considering everything else that's being done to make the property more in keeping with the historic nature, it's not as significant to me as it would be otherwise.
I agree. She's really doing a lot to bring back the original appearance of the home, and it's a small compromise to get a much better design. Yes.
And actually, Erin just pointed out there's no sidewalk on that street. So the applicant was literally saying you have to go in the street to come back in.
Right.
That's a good thing to point out. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
It's the first time I'm making a motion.
Yay.
Yeah, right? Get the training wheels off. I think the only motion I did was the bank building, but
Oh, yes.
but let's see if I can read this correctly. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 19-42. What?
Oh.
Do we have enough people? Do we have alternates here? I just want to make sure we only have the appropriate number of people. It's just 7 that are voting and making motions.
Okay. Oh, are you able to make a motion?
Maybe not.
Is that
Uh-oh.
is that what you were indicating?
The training wheels are back on.
Back on.
Because it looks like we have a full house tonight.
Yes, thank you
Right.
for catching that.
Yeah.
And to Ms. Mittner.
Okay, I move the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 1942 for 745 Newark Street for ad valorem pre-construction additions, alterations of a primary structure and new construction accessory structure of 1-car garage in accordance with standards, I guess that 9 and 10, as set forth in section 94-49 of the City Zonings and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9, which states new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be comparable with the historic materials, feature, size, scale, and proportions, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. Standard 10 states new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. Therefore, the city staff, therefore we are recommending approval of the application with the conditions. 1, the slope roof on the primary structure shall be hidden from view through the installation of a parapet roof on all 4 sides, and the remaining projections over the rear porch shall be surfaced in tile. 2nd, the front porch roof shall be redesigned to have heavier wooden columns and incorporate historically accurate details and proportions, as well as the width of size of the cover entry. 3rd, the west-facing pent roof on the garage shall be eliminated or windows installed beneath. 4th, during the permitting process, the rear setback of garage shall be confirmed to be a minimum of 15 feet to the center line of the alley, which Ms. Misner already confirmed in today's meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Good luck.
And just to point out, the alternates do still participate in discussion. Just don't make the motion.
It's been a while since we've had the full board, so
I
sorry
know.
about
It is,
that.
we usually have somebody absent, so.
And we're moving on to case number 19-43, which is clarify window policy.
Yes, so I was going to start the discussion and presentation, and then I will hand it over to Aaron. We are not necessarily looking for action tonight. This is just to start the dialogue with the board again, because windows are such a common application, whether it's at the staff level or a board level. And we also have Aaron's fresh perspective on some of the applications. So we just wanted to revisit this with you, even if no changes are made, or certainly if this is an ongoing conversation, not necessarily solved tonight. So the things we'll be presenting to you as briefly as possible is the previous window policy, the current window policy, how staff and the board have been processing applications and requirements, a couple before and after photos of windows that have been approved for replacement, concerns about a window inset and installation. We are dealing with obviously the Florida Building Code and NOAs and where they and how they can be installed. Different product approvals, different means of hurricane protection, if you're retaining an original window that does not have that, some of the low E coatings, frame colors, and a proposal, just at least as a starting point for a window policy, both the full chart and a summary version, which I believe Aaron handed out, the summary version, and also a proposal on low E and frame color. What we've been working with is direction that the board gave to staff at the October 24th, 27 meeting, and that was to actually reverse a previous window policy, where before we were bringing all original windows to the board, but because of feedback from the public, we reverted back to that staff would administratively approve replacement windows as long as they met certain criteria, such as aluminum and impact. And it differentiated a little bit if it was a contributing structure with an original window or non-contributing or not an original window, but as you can see, the majority was happening at a staff level, even if it was an original window, unless vinyl was being proposed. That's really the only time you saw it. Otherwise, we were approving them. Previously, in 2015, it was a case-by-case basis. So we were trying to retain as much of the wood and steel casements as possible, and we were differentiating. So that was, again, as you can see, lots of cases coming to the board. And so again, and this is from 2015 and 2017, we reverted back to what was before this policy, where again, it was all at a staff level. And for all these decisions, we've been using Secretary of the Interior Standards 6 and 9 in terms of deteriorated materials being repaired rather than replaced, but taking our political as well as physical climate into consideration. And maybe it's appropriate, we're discussing it as, everyone's watching the tropics this week, that insurance rates are very high, and having hurricane protection does make a difference to your home, as well as the manpower required. So again, that is all coming into play with the Florida Building Code and what we're facing with West Palm Beach. So that's why we reverted back. But we have some ideas of how we perhaps can tweak it to really save the best of the best, kind of like the Croton case that we had in front of you, while perhaps providing a little bit more leeway. So I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. Again, no final decisions need to be made tonight. We can have months of discussion on this, but we just want to make you aware that there has been a shift from what was the more stringent, a very liberal policy to a more stringent. That was not well received, so we went back to the more liberal policy. And again, if you want to continue that way. So, right, was that? Yeah.
Yep. Good evening, Aaron Boringer, Historic Preservation Planner. So right now, our staff and board window policy, staff does recommend preserving original wood windows whenever possible, but with the unique needs of South Florida, applicants are very wanting to install new impact products. So staff and the board, we obviously do look at the materials, the style of the windows, trying to maintain that, the configuration, the mutton pattern, as well as glass. So the board does allow clear glass or clear glass with the low E, as well as the frame color. So white is the commonly approved, anodized on mid-century occasionally, and then below right here is just some conditions that staff adds when approving a permit for various reasons. Sometimes just the information isn't as detailed as it would like to be. There is a number of window permits that come in. I probably approved about 3 or 4 today, or at least looked at them. So all windows shall have clear glass or clear glass with low E coating. Privacy or tinted glass is prohibited. All windows shall be sized to fit the original frame opening and match the inset or depth of the original windows within the opening. The existing mullion shall remain or be replaced with a mullion of the same width, and then all windows shall have external OG dimensional muttons. Obviously, for a mid-century home, it would be pyramid dimensional muttons because they didn't have OG. Just a quick over different window types. So there's obviously sash windows, so that would be your single hung, your double hung. Casement windows, jalousie windows, and jalousie windows are not available in impact product, so that's not anywhere near in this discussion. Awning windows as well as horizontal sliders. So the next few slides are just going to be before and after photos. All this work has been permitted. It is not a view of staff of if they're good installations, bad installations. They're just kind of showing you what's been going out in the field and being installed in the past couple years. And I'm just going to kind of go through these kind of slowly. I may comment on something or not throughout that. So just to, like, the top is Google Street View in this case, and the bottom is a photo. So these are replacement windows. This slide and the next slide is actually the same property, as well as the one before it, just showing replacement windows. Some of these windows are wood, but they were replacement windows beforehand. There isn't actually, the before and after is actually the same photo. At some point, this window was approved for replacement, and I just want to point out the mullion right here is actually part of the window, while it's a much thicker piece on this piece up here, as well as the rest of the structure. This actually is not in, this is in West Florida, so it's showing a replacement window that's been installed on the left, as well as the original that is on the right. This is another structure that has had replacement windows, so the before is right here. This is older Google Street View, so the resolution is good, but this was a recent photo just showing the installation. This was done a few years ago, as well as the same structure, but a different photo and a different. This right here, the original wood windows, as well as work wasn't quite done. So Historic doesn't actually do any formal inspection, so it's just kind of going out when we're in the field and seeing, oh, I wonder what the progress on this, if it's done. So this has been since painted since then. This is another property. Note the mullion. Once again, just going out, so they haven't finished painting here yet. I haven't been out to the property since. And this is just kind of showing the windows. Obviously, the clamshells are not original, but you can see the the location of where the frames, the top sash sits, versus down here, for example, it's flush with the exterior wall. This is another before and after. So this is actually replacement windows, so there isn't any historic integrity being lost. And these were the new windows that were recently installed. Once again, another property. So we have 6/6 windows here, and at some point, 4/4 windows were permitted. So one of the things I've been looking at is, wood windows tend to be sit within the frame. So these are approximate. They obviously would vary depending on the structure, and obviously there's some distortion based on the angle of the camera and the ruler. So it's about 1.5 inches based on the exterior trim to the top sash. And this is approximately 4 inches based on where the bottom sash is to the exterior of the sill. This is a product approval for a commonly type of window that is approved, is aluminum single hung product. A lot of them are flange frames, and just noted here so this flange right here is actually installed on the exterior wall. So this would be the section as you look, and so per the product approval, getting that location within the frame just is not commonly possible. This is another product approval for Tischler. This is actually a wood impact product. It does actually allow a installation directly into a 2x4 wood frame as long as you're meeting these requirements. And speaking with building, it is theoretically possible to have this set within the frame as long as you're meeting the minimum edge distance requirements. So just a little information, hurricane protection. So we have these awnings. This is from a Miami News article from 1956, and on the right is from the Palm Beach Post in 1971, showing accordions, awnings, as well as storm panels. So the different types of hurricane protection, so there's screening products such as Armor Screen, illustrated here. Removable panels, which are already approved at the staff level at the building permit, either they're clear or they're metal. Bahama shutters of different types. Colonial shutters are also another option for impact products. And there's a few accordion shutters already on structures within the historic district. This is one. The next couple are just different types of structures with accordion shutters already installed. This is actually outside the district, but it is a frame structure. And this is outside the district as well. This structure has actually had a couple modifications. Originally had a flat tile roof before the property owner installed this, and these are steel casements. So roll down windows are also, this one I believe is in Prospect Park. So there is located right here as well as on the side. And this is just a zoomed in on what's on the left side, so you can kind of see there's also an accordion shutter on the property as well. And this is another photo of the front, which is readily visible from the street, and just where the roll down is, and this kind of creates a header. This is another example of a roll down. This is actually in Lake Worth. So this is more on the mid-century era of structures. And so it's located right here, and this is just another angle that just shows how it was installed and its placement. Staff has concerns over low E. So there's a lot of differences in low E versus the darkness. And some of it may be dealing with the light at the time of the photo, the reflection of the clouds, as well as other, but these tend to be pretty dark, but yet they're still considered low E. But yet these two properties on the left and right are also low E as well. This is just the photo from earlier with the whole property, illustrating the work that's currently being done. Another project, so all these windows were recently approved and they are low E, but these were already replacement windows. This is another structure. There are some wood windows that are currently being replaced, and so you can see the low E, and this privacy window is being removed. I'm just working with the applicant for taking care of some issues. For frame colors, I know there's a lot of requests for different frame colors. Some people want black, some people want bronze. If you already have wood windows, we don't regulate paint color surfaces, and you've already painted your windows. So, you can have red, you can have green, you can have purple or lavender. So you can have they can be any color because we don't regulate paint surfaces unless the surface has not been painted. So there's a lot of requests for bronze on Mission Mediterranean Revival. So considering, having that okay by default. Obviously white is okay as well, as it currently is. And mid-century, there's a lot of mid-century houses that are getting their windows replaced. Like for example, this Jolicies, they've been switching to the equivalent in white frame, but requiring that the anodized be required. So it maintains that finish. As you can see, from 301 Southern on the left, and an apartment building that's not in the district or designated, these are steel casements. This is the proposed window policy, which is just not a firm proposal, just kind of getting a dialogue started. It is included in your packet on the spreadsheet that was folded out towards the end. And you actually have one of these in front. So I want to call this a summary, but in reality it's not really a summary because it's almost just as lengthy. So generally, if you have replacement windows, you can replace them with any material you want. Just at the staff level, at a building permit, staff will continue to regulate window replacement style and mounting pattern, but if you already have your replacement windows, then the integrity has already been lost. And there are several applicants who would prefer to go with vinyl, but it's not an option, even though they already have replacement windows. If you want to replace your windows and you have either original or gain significant wood windows, so if they were replaced but they're not quite almost 100 years old, say they were replaced in the 40s or so, and you want to go aluminum, fiberglass, or vinyl, that would have to go to the preservation board and generally deny or approve if there's circumstances that require it, but support alternatives. And if you have original wood windows or significant wood windows and you want to replace them with wood, just having that as a level 2, which could always be deferred to the board. The material is much closer to what the existing wood window is, as well as there's more potential possibility for its placement. And staff would recommend the style as well as the mounting pattern. And the last is just with steel windows. So there's 2 different categories for steel windows, but if you're doing fiberglass, vinyl, or wood, that would have to go to the board and generally deny. If you're doing aluminum, so it's maintaining it as a metal still, that would just be a level 2 and just approving that based on window style and mounting pattern. And the next 4 are just about impact protection. So the first one is, approving colonial shutters, Bahama shutters, or other permanent mounts of any material, as long as it's appropriate for that style of architecture. There's also removable panels and screening products, which are already approved at the level 1, so that would be no change. The 2 big ones would be accordion shutters, pull-down shutters, or similar permanent out 4 when preserving an original or gain significant window only. If it was on non-street elevations or not on a sidewalk, it'll be a level 2, so we can still have some review process over it. But if it's on a street elevation or a sidewalk, so this includes Mango Promenade, then that would have to go to the board and generally support a denial and support removable panels or other screening protection just to maintain that. The last bit is so just a frame color policy. So if you have mid-century, obviously aluminum, steel, or vinyl material, you can have white if it's already white, because there are some windows that have already been painted, and the preferred option would obviously be to anodize. If you have a Mission or Mediterranean Revival, the aluminum, steel, or vinyl, white or bronze, and all others would just be white with the aluminum, steel, and vinyl. And once again, there's no regulation on paint colors for a painted surface. So if you have wood windows, you can paint them any color you please. And the last bit is just to address low E and the darkness and how it does change the neighborhood character as you're walking down the street or driving. If it's on a street facing or a sidewalk, it has to have clear glass, can be approved by staff, and the clear glass with low E can be approved by staff at the level 2, which could always be deferred to the board if the board feels that would have a detriment, as well as clear glass or clear glass with low E could just be approved on all other elevations at the staff level. I know that was a lot, so I could go through if any questions. Also, as Frederic mentioned, this is just a start of dialogue, so there doesn't have to be anything approved today. Could always come back next month with additional information as well.
Oh, I just wanted to say what a great job you did on this, you and Ms. Midner. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
A great work of organization. A little bit overwhelming for me, I should say, but I just wanted to make a couple of points. It seems that when people have been coming in with window proposals, they already have something in mind, whether it's the vinyl or aluminum or anything like that. And based on something that I saw in the text here that caught my eye, it seems that the material used should be dictated by which material can best reproduce what was originally there. Okay? So it seems to me that decision should be made at the staff level. Somebody should come in and say, well, I want to replace my windows. And, let's say there were wooden windows. Let's say they are in reasonably good shape. As the point I brought up last month, we should provide the applicant with a list of 3-6 companies that do that type of work, and they should go to them and say, can these actually be fixed, okay? And what would the unit cost be? So we have something in our hands, or staff has something in their hands, okay? Okay, let's say now that the wooden windows are not repairable. Okay, now we want to know which other material could best replicate what it was. And we should be telling the applicant that rather than the other way around. There was another comment in there about the mullions, about many of them are just clip-ons and so forth, and references made to commercial building. We're up on the higher levels. It doesn't make any difference, but down below it does. Well, just in the time I've been here, we've approved lots of windows that were just snap-ins that could be seen from the street. So again, it seems to me that we are in the business of historical accuracy, and materials used should reflect that. The best material that can best reproduce an original feature.
Thank you.
So in principle, I completely agree with you. However, in practicality, if the wood window is beyond repair, to replace it with a wood window is very cost prohibitive.
Okay.
And I think that's not always reasonable for
Okay, I didn't know
our
that.
citizens.
Okay.
So, and we certainly try to educate and work with our applicants as best as we can. But as you see here, it's a really complex situation, and we have homeowners educated on the topic at all different levels with different socioeconomic means, and we have contractors that some are much more cooperative than others, and so we're kind of at the mercy in trying to balance all this while, again, we had 100 applications this month at a staff level in addition to preparing, of course, board cases and other work. So we'll certainly try to encourage people to match material as the standard indicates. But again, sometimes the economics don't work.
Of course.
How does this window policy compare with other Florida CLGs like Coral Gables or St. Petersburg?
It really depends. St. Petersburg actually is very liberal, and you don't have to save your wood windows. I know that's been a concern of residents and staff there. Coral Gables is a little bit more stringent, but not always. I think, again, they have the economic means to do that for their districts. So I would say we fall right in the middle for South Florida, and I think South Florida, again, because of the Miami-Dade Building Code, is different than the rest of Florida. You know, you get Orlando North, and people are outraged that wood windows are being replaced, but again, they're not dealing with the same building codes we are, and so I think we're right in line with our peers.
And one of the things we discussed on the phone, how will these suggested changes affect your staff time in terms of, you know, preparing for meetings if more things are coming before the board?
Yes, thank you. So we were thinking, since we're trying to offer some more opportunities for applicants with some more materials, that would balance out the few that we would be bringing back to the board for original materials. So we're hoping to give a little bit of a carrot and then just the really true ones, bring them back to the board. But again, we realize this is a lot of information, and it's just to start thinking about it and how we should approach it so that we're all on the same page.
I have a question. I'm interested in seeing the existing policies and what's changed in the proposed as far as the column for the level of review.
All right, so the current window policy is essentially if you want to replace your windows, whether it's wood, metal, or fiberglass, it can be all done at the staff level. So the only time it comes to the board is for vinyl. Whether you have an original window or a replacement window, it just comes right away to the board. As for the proposed potential policy, that's out. It obviously would be a lot more, it's not as streamlined because there's a lot of nuances, but it would, so there's been a lot of replacement windows, so that would all be taken care of at the building permit level. So whether it's vinyl, because there has been cases for vinyl, so it could potentially streamline that process because there's no need to take those to the board anymore. The original replacement of wood or steel with like material, so wood or aluminum in that case, could be approved at the staff level with a level 2, which could always be deferred to the board if required. The key thing is if it's original wood material or original steel and you're not proposing an aluminum, fiberglass, or vinyl replacement, that would come to the board. So you would likely see more cases regarding windows, but hopefully there could be a little bit more encouragement with some impact protection being done at the building permit level, such as, you know, with Colonial shutters, Bahama shutters, but also even with some more less favorable hurricane protection at the staff level, at level 2, regarding on the non-street elevations or sidewalk elevations, and where it would only come to the board for if it's a street-facing elevation. So if you're on a corner, you have 2 sides, so you would be unfortunate in that standpoint. Or if you're like in Mango Promenade, where you have a street and a sidewalk, you would have to come to the board for those 2 sides as well. So it would involve more work on staff as well as the board.
I'm also curious, early on you showed us your slide that had the existing guidelines that staff uses when approving or denying windows.
Yes, I did, and let me just pull it up.
Yeah, I think when we come back for discussion, because I know we're not necessarily making decisions tonight, it might be helpful, I don't know if that's already in our packet, but just to see that and kind of understand with staff's current direction, you know, do we agree with the general modifications as is?
Okay.
just to have it like broken out.
All right, I can spruce that up.
I think that also we need a deeper discussion on the vinyl windows, because I believe that the vinyl comes before us because it was a lower quality product, but lately, we were receiving requests, and we got fabricators here explaining that the product is no longer like a low quality, doesn't decolorate. They get a lifetime warranty, right? Something happened, they come, they replace it at no charge. So I think that we need kind of an expert, and we need to discuss that so we are all on the same page. And if that is true, and we start allowing vinyl windows, then the vinyl doesn't have to come before us anymore, if that is the case. But there was a reason why we didn't want vinyl windows, from the start.
Absolutely. A lot of the vinyl information that I have readily available is about a decade old. So there's obviously would be improvements in that technology, as we saw when the case I presented a couple months ago on 36th Street, as well as Curtin Way. Both times the contractor did mention that there's been improvements in vinyl since then, where those concerns either are lowered or have been eliminated entirely. So I can look to see if there's any been modern, recent research done on vinyl.
Yeah, and the other issue I think that is monitoring what the people is doing with approvals, because if nobody's looking at what they are doing, if we approve external OGI dimensional mountings, and somebody put like a flat, mounting inside the window, then, we need to enforce it, right? We need to, in some way, enforce that what we approve is being done.
Correct, and there was an example that I shown that they did do external flat dimensional mountings, and I'm currently working on resolving that.
Yeah, but there was also examples of, things that were approved like with 4/1, and a 1/1 was installed, or stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Maybe we approve a clear glass and was a low-E coating, totally green, was installed, right? So that is unacceptable, right? So in some way, do we have some power to enforce it or not?
We do, technically, if all the i's were dotted and the t's were crossed, but then it becomes a political will issue as well of, are we going to make someone remove their windows? So sometimes we've had cases come back to the board, sometimes we've been successful. That's the trickier part.
and maybe that is the reason that more cases have to come before us, because then maybe the people will feel more pressure or engage in complying with, the approvals,
I think you have some direction for your next presentation. So I think these are really good suggestions. I think that, in anything that we do, we want to show that we can be flexible. And I think that what you've proposed shows that there is some flexibility there if people are willing to work with staff and with the board.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Aaron, for taking the time to do
Yes.
this. It's very useful and needed. Amazing job.
Thank you.
Is there any way you could post it to the historic page for the city?
I can work with Caroline Glass, who manages the website, to get it posted.
Yeah, because I think there's like a lot of education, as everybody has been stating, that the general public needs on this issue and like seeing the differences. And then you could say, there's this handy presentation available on our website.
All right.
I think the mayor's office does send out the weekly newsletters on like Sunday via email,
Oh, that's a good idea.
where they show like recent policy actions and news and stuff. Maybe it can appear on the news feed there.
I like that idea.
I'll look into that.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I guess can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.